Welcome to Breaking Barriers, everyone. Tanya, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Spilivoy. I'm the Director for Open Policy at the Witchy Cooperative for Educational Technologies, and we call ourselves WCET. Today, we'll be talking about Breaking Barriers, the Regional Compact's collaboration for OER policy and practice. First, I'd like to introduce the panelists who will be speaking with us today. Jenny Parks from MEC, Rachel Stakoviak from NEBI, Liliana Diaz from Witchy, Wanda Barker from SREB, and I'll be the moderator. Just want you to know that each of them will also give a more in-depth introduction of themselves and their organizations once they have their turn. So why are we working together, and what's the framework for our project? First of all, we know that from past Bayview Analytics reports that faculty awareness and adoptions are on the rise. And we know that from a recent University of Georgia study that when students are in open educational resources classes, that they do better in their coursework. It reduces the DWF rates and also helps students improve their learning metrics. So we also wanted to know if all of the work that's being done in the OER community, such as initiatives at institutions, you might have heard of faculty grants and all kinds of state initiatives, such as the one in Georgia and the one in North Dakota. There's a Rhode Island initiative. There are initiatives in systems as well, like in Colorado, the Colorado Department of Higher Education has a system initiative for OER. Do they work? What is the impact of OER initiatives on actual adoptions in the field? And so I did a research study with Jeff Seaman and Nate Ralph from Bayview Analytics. They were formerly the Babson Survey Research Group. And we can provide a link to the study in the chat. But what we found was that faculty who are aware of one or more OER initiatives are 3 to 5 times more likely to be adopters of OER. And this holds true for faculty teaching introductory level courses and the general population of faculty. So it really didn't matter who, what level the faculty member was at. If they had heard of an OER initiative, either at their institution, at the state, at the system level, maybe Go Open or any of the big high level, state level OER initiatives, that they were more likely to adopt an open education resource. When implemented at the institution level, OER initiatives resulted in a measurable rise in the number of faculty who are aware of OER. And faculty who are aware of OER are much likely to adopt OER as required course materials, and they might also do so in the future. So even if they hadn't immediately adopted, they felt like they might do so in the future. And the cool part about what we learned from our study is that the impact of awareness on OER initiatives adoption is consistent. It really impacted everyone at the 2- and 4-year institutions. It didn't matter what level of course was being taught. And we found that it was consistent in each of the compact regions in the United States. So basically, it gives us a lot of energy to do something, to start an initiative, to work together, to bring OER right to the people. So I'll talk a little bit about this collaboration and why we're here today. NCOER is the National Consortium for Open Educational Resources, and the people who are on the panel today represent each of the compact regions of MEC, which is the Midwestern Higher Education Compact, NEBI, the New England Board of Higher Education, WICHE, the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, and SREB, the Southern Regional Education Board. And our collaboration is aimed to increase collaboration, and we want to reduce the duplication of effort. So when something really wonderful is happening in Maine, we can share that same kind of practice with the folks in Texas. And if something wonderful is happening up in Michigan, we want everybody in Florida to know about it and also be part of the greatness. So we also work with regional compact regions, and you can see those on the map, what the regions are and the states that they represent. We also work with systems of higher education that are part of those states and individuals at institutions. So really, it's just a swath of folks within our regional compact area, as well as together. So we are all working together and with all of you. We're focused on equity, cost savings, research, and open pedagogy. And I would just say that the reason why we're here today at the Open Education Conference is we want to learn as much as we can about what is happening in the field. We want to know all the wonderful things you're doing. So we hope you share in the chat and that you ask a lot of questions and get involved, because we want to include you and listen to you as well. So I'll start with our first presenter, Jenny Parks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Parks. I'm a vice president with the Midwestern Compact. We call it MEC. And I'm so glad to be here today and eager to share with you the work we've been doing and the work that is yet to come. All right. And Tanya is doing my slides. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of OER work at MEC for about 2 years now. And the theme is really to build capacity and community for OER implementation. When we talked to our stakeholders, they said, we just need to create more awareness and more contacts for people. So that has really been our approach. It's worked well. The way we've done that is with some support by the Hewlett Foundation. We started with a big regional a regional convening of the 12 MEC states and 5 representatives from each state in November of 2018. And out of that 2-day event, we had state OER action teams evolve. And those are teams that might have librarians, people from a SHIO office, people from institutions, K-12, the K-12 community, maybe from workforce development. We have a wide range of folks who sit on those teams, and the wider, the better. We find that works the best. So those teams have worked at the state level over the last 2 years to create capacity and community. And then at MEC, we respond to their requests and we offer webinars, whether it's to showcase what's happening in a particular state or to address a broader issue. We've also, during those 2 years, been able to offer an institutional leadership training event that people found to be very helpful. So what are some of the things they've been able to do? Well, it's actually quite impressive. In most of the states, they've been able to make some presentations to the legislature. And in some states, the legislature has passed a resolution saying, yeah, we want you to track this. We want there to be some survey data that's coming back to us each year, because we want to think about this and begin to think about additional policies that we might implement. So of course, this has led to statewide surveys of institutional OER work in most of our 12 states. In many of the states, they've been able to create new or combine repositories. They've been able to use the same metadata, some common guidelines. They've been able to often combine a K-12 and a higher ed repository. So again, there's that alignment. We've also seen an increase in state memberships for the Open Education Network, formerly known as the Open Textbook Network. And we've had, in 2 states at least, the creation, we've gone from these very informal feeling state action teams to some that are very official in nature. So for example, on the next slide, I'll show you, in Kansas, they have been able to create a standing committee now. It's a steering committee that is a part of the Kansas Board of Regents. And in fact, every public institution in the state of Kansas has a representative on this board. And the amount of work they've been able to do since creating this steering committee is amazing. And so Kansas is racing ahead with OER. They were an early leader in many ways anyway, but even more so now. And then in Michigan, which has a totally different way of doing this, they do not have a central SHIO agency, State Higher Education Executive Office, and everything is very decentralized in Michigan. So it has been representatives from, again, many, many institutions in Michigan, private and public, who come together on their own to create the Michigan OER Network. And they have just recently launched. And again, are inspirational, doing things that are fantastic. In the next 18 months, also supported by the Hewlett Foundation, we are going to continue the work with our state OER action teams. And I invite those of you in the MEC states to join our teams. We need as many voices as possible. That's when we do our best work and have our best ideas. One of the things we're going to do that's always very distinctive to our compact is to do some contracting and procurement activities. We know that there are some needs out there for OER technologies, whether it's repositories or authoring platforms, etc. So we will be starting those conversations. And again, we'll have a big work group, and I invite any and all of you to take advantage of that to tell us what you need. I'll also be doing some research on tracking and calculating cost savings for OER. And we will be facilitating some virtual OER summits in our states, as well as virtual institutional leadership trainings. And then finally, we also are doing some specific work on OER for career and technical education. We are working with Rebus and Skills Commons for that work. And then we are also working very heavily with SREB to research and provide some new resources and some ideas and inspiration for the use of OER in dual enrollment courses. So I look forward to any and all of you reaching out to join us, and then to answering your questions here at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Jenny. So exciting to hear all the work that's happening in the MEC region. And now we know that regional collaboration works, and we'd like to talk about what New England Board of Higher Education is doing in their region with Rachel.
Thanks, Tanya, and thanks to Open Ed for having us today, and all of you for tuning into our presentation here. My name is Rachel Stakowiak. I'm with the New England Board of Higher Education. I am in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm pleased to share a little bit about our work and objectives in the OER space today. And I'm surrounded by these amazing compact colleagues, but I want to be sure to mention I do not do this work alone at NEBI. I'm very fortunate to work with a brilliant fellow. Our Open Education Fellow is Lindsay Gum. She is a scholarly librarian in the fine state of Rhode Island, and serves as a critical voice on their state level Open Education Committee. And she's really been integral in sort of guiding our objectives and interstate collaboration. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the development of our work. Coming in, we knew that we had 6 Northeast states who had their sort of own unique OER objectives and initiatives underway. And that as we sort of found our voice in this space, we had to be mindful of those efforts and the people who are already sort of deeply immersed in driving OER conversations in development. So Lindsay has been a guiding force for us in getting to know the people in our region and connecting us back out into the broader Open Education Network as well. In New England specifically, she works with an Open Education Advisory Committee that's composed of regional leaders from all of the Northeast states, so including the 6 New England states and New York and New Jersey. And really, this is a team of very diverse perspectives and expertise. And in the development of our priorities here, we heard a number of things from our advisory committee and sort of our state leaders. And a lot of this will not be a surprise to this group, but I'll share. We heard that OER leaders are tackling the same policy, strategy, stewardship considerations, challenges, and solutions. So valuable time may be spent reinventing the wheel. We heard there's a need for additional support to help seam together sort of these disparate voices. And that looks differently. It could be between individual institutions, within state systems, between public and independent institutions, even state education leadership. In New England in particular, I'll add 61% of our institutions are in the independent sector. So for us, it's really important that we're finding ways to collaboration, cross-pollinate in as many ways as we can. So between borders and sectors is really key to our success. We've heard a lot that momentum builds on the cost savings benefits to students, which is huge. However, it doesn't necessarily resonate in building sort of the larger strategic momentum or planning with policymakers or sort of upper administration at either institution or state level. So, you know, we really want to get to a point where we're supporting practitioners, building up their objectives, showing their great work, so we can really build a case for OER to become institutionalized and really baked into or woven into the fabric of education. Thank you, Tanya. In our priorities, if you could go back one slide, sorry. We're working in 3 areas really, so policy development, leadership awareness and engagement, and practitioner support. You can read these slides, see the priorities. We have some wonderful resources that are available on our website as sort of an answer to each of these sort of areas of work. We've spent a lot of time really working on this leadership awareness and engagement and practitioner support in particular. And this is where I'll do a bit of shameless cross promotion. We've found that really elevating the great work or existing work within our region has been effective in showing leaders why they should buy into open education. Lindsay developed this wonderful series. It's a practitioner perspective series highlighting experiences and progress from the boots on the ground perspective in our New England Journal of Higher Education. She's done a fabulous presentation as part of Open Ed that you can go and listen to learn more. So she'll talk about the practitioner perspectives individually and then sort of the communication plan around that. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. And then as far as our sort of work ahead, our objectives for the next 18 months, we are very mindful in developing these that we're working with our compact counterparts here to complement their sort of respective bodies and areas of expertise. This group had a really fantastic opportunity to conduct a couple national working groups to talk about gaps in this work and how we could really complement, again, the existing efforts that are already out there in the open education space. And then paired with the Bayview report, we've come up with some different objectives that we can work through strategically in our region. And obviously over the last 9 months, you know, we've been riddled with global issues. So while we're all sort of sifting through, you know, everything in play, we're really taking some time to reflect and see the opportunity in development for open education. So, you know, don't waste a crisis. There's an opportunity here. So the bulk of our activities really are focused on scaffolding for faculty, the benefits of open licenses to both create more representative learning materials for their students at post-secondary institutions, and then supporting the practitioner work in their efforts to engage students who are less likely to be given opportunities to contribute to sort of the scholarly conversation. So the focus really is as editors or creators of OER, students have the opportunity to make existing content more culturally relevant so that they see themselves and their communities reflected in the examples and case studies. So a lot of what we'll do is focused on extending pedagogical flexibility, looking at student success and outcomes as a result of open education, and then taking our key insights here and figuring out how we can engage key leadership in building out policies which really enhance support and increase adoption as a whole. So I think I'm going to stop there and throw the ball back to you, Tanya.
Hi, thank you so much. Next, we're going to be hearing from Wanda at SREB, the Southern Regional Education Board.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you all for being here. I am a division director at SREB, and we don't call it SHREBs. And so everyone has a little acronym, but we don't usually call it SHREB if you work at SREB. So I just thought I would tell you a little bit about SREB and regional compacts first, in case you're not that familiar with them. SREB is the oldest compact. It was actually created in 1948 when governors and legislators got together and said, you know, we've got to do something about education in the South because we know how it impacts the economic vitality of the region. A little bit about our region. We have 16 states that are SREB members that you can see in the graphic there. But for OER purposes, we're going to include 4 additional states and territories, which we support for state authorization purposes because they were not members of a compact, and we wanted to make sure that we could do as much outreach as possible. So in addition to those 16 states, we include the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. So we hope to impact OER in those states and territories as well. Go back one, Tanya. Some other things about our region is, you know, we have a great deal of rural areas within the South where some of the students don't have quality internet services and don't have the same benefits as others. That's something that we're concerned about. We have 8 of the top 10 highest poverty states in the U.S. in our region. And we also serve a great number of HBCUs. There are 93 HBCUs, which represent 95% of all the HBCUs in the US, and over 250 minority serving institutions. So we have many hurdles to overcome when it comes to education. And so that is one reason why we strongly support open educational resources. Also, we are the only compact that does focus on K-12 education. In fact, over half of the employees in our Atlanta office for SREB work in the school improvement department, which works directly with schools, districts, LEAs, and state agencies to improve K-12 education. And of course, it's been a pleasure to work with the regional compacts to figure out how do we complement each other in our work. And so with SREB's focus on K-12 education, we thought that that would be a good place to start, is focusing on that connection between secondary and post-secondary education for the dual credit, dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment. Everyone seems to call it a different name, but that is our focus. And within our region, there have been some pockets of great work, like Jeff Gallant, who is in the session today, and Florida, and many others. And I can't name them all, but it seems to be mostly at institution or system level, but not really a regional level. And so what we're really excited about is trying to bring that focus across the entire region. So some of the past and current work that we're doing on OER and dual enrollment, my team and I have made numerous presentations to the SREB Legislative Advisory Council, the Legislative and Governor's Education Advisory Staff, our SREB Board, our Educational Technology Cooperative meetings, many other events within SREB. And if you're not familiar with the compact structure, basically SREB has the governor and 4 legislators from every state in the 16 member states that make up this 80-member board that advises SREB on, what are the education needs and support areas in our region. We have a team in the school improvement division that is working on some OER courses in specific pathways in their advanced career pathways. We work with HBCUs and MSIs on equity and access issues, which include OER. We have a dual enrollment advisory panel that is made up of stakeholders across the entire region. And in the links, I'm sure you all will get these slides. The links will take you to some resources where you can download reports and find out information about these different initiatives. We also do periodic college affordability profiles for the states in our region. So that link will take you to the site where you can view those profiles or actually download them for the 16 states in our region. And it gives you some really good information about how affordable college is there. And in the future, we plan to include some spotlights on OER use in the region on the next iteration of affordability profiles. And then the other piece is our EdTech Cooperative. We have had numerous presenters, both in person and virtual. We're doing much more virtual lately, but we've had Cable Green with Creative Commons, Nicole Allen with Spark, Jerry Hanley with Merlot, Una Daly with CCOER, many others that to try to, get that information out. And then next week we have a meeting with our EdTech Cooperative members to discuss the next iteration for the educational technology 10 issues, the top 10 issues. And we feel like OER may rise into that top 10 for the next 3 years. So you can follow that link and stay tuned to the 10 issues. So next slide, Tanya. So as far as equitable access, success, and affordability, SREB will focus its OER efforts for this grant on dual enrollment programs, as I mentioned, as students move from or transition from high school into post-secondary education, but with particular emphasis on equitable access, success, and affordability. SREB's dual enrollment research focus is on 3 main areas: state and district legislation and policies, current OER activity in dual enrollment courses, and then the impact of college readiness standards on equitable participation in dual enrollment. Our research will include some analysis of relevant laws and cost distribution for dual enrollment courses, because every state seems to handle that differently. A survey instrument to identify use of OER in dual enrollment courses, and an analysis of the impact on college readiness on equitable access. So the dual enrollment advisory panel has helped to inform us on some of the work that we'll be doing for this grant. And as we delve into those equity issues for OER, we've found that many high school students who would benefit from dual enrollment are not able to do so because they don't meet some of the minimum college readiness standards. So that's one of the aspects where we want to take a deeper dive and look into, how we can improve equitable access through those routes. And then, of course, our work with HBCUs and MSIs will help to inform us on policies and practice to improve equitable access and success of minority students. And we're also pairing this with some ongoing research on rural students and broadband access, because COVID-19 has brought to light some things where, we know that we need to make greater strides in those areas. So some of the planned activities for the next 18 months. SREB's strengths include research, data, publications, and convening of stakeholders in order to increase communication and collaboration across the region. And we truly believe that states can do more together collaboratively than they could do on their own. So sharing of legislation, policies, promising practices helps to raise the bar for education across the entire region. And so we hope to build on SREB's strengths as we look to these activities. So one of the things for raising awareness of OER is to create contact lists for OER and dual enrollment leaders across the K-12 and post-secondary education throughout our region. And if any of you are part of that, those stakeholders, I hope that you'll reach out to me. We want to compile a comprehensive list so that we can have the most outreach as possible. We want to research legislation and policies to identify those that have improved or have potential to improve sustainability of OER and making college more affordable for students. We plan to develop and disseminate a survey to identify current initiatives related to OER in our SREB states, do some research on developmental education and college readiness standards, as I mentioned before, on how those issues factor into minority, low-income, and rural students. We hope to inform our regional governors, legislators, SHEOs, and LEAs on progress and policy recommendations at our different convenings like board meetings, legislative advisory council, and so forth. And we hope to host a regional convening of OER and dual enrollment leaders in the last half of the grant, because not many people are traveling now, and we realize states, haven't even released some folks to be able to travel. We are going to be developing some publications regarding collaboration and networking, dual or concurrent enrollment, transferability, online course development, and embedding cultural sensitivity, diversity, and inclusion into OER materials. We've had some conversations with folks at different SREB region HBCUs about this already, and we hope to expand that. We're going to be conducting some webinars for policymakers, educators, and practitioners, and initiate additional conversations with HBCUs and those feeder schools, because we know that COVID has also impacted college enrollments. And so we want to see how we can help with that. And we think that dual enrollment and OER are a good possible solution for that. And then, of course, collaborate and complement the work through the other regions. And we're just so excited to work with this group. They're just fantastic. And we love reaching out to the greater OER community, and I hope that you will reach out to us. I would love to hear if you have ideas, suggestions, case studies, or any type of information, especially involving dual enrollment and OER, but I hope that you'll reach out to me, and I look forward to more work with this group in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. That was fantastic hearing everything about SREB, and I'm sure there's so much more. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Liliana Diaz, and she's a policy analyst at the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education.
Thanks, Tanya, and thank you all for being here this morning, afternoon, evening, since we have folks from all over the world joining us, which is exciting. So my name is Liliana Diaz. I'm a policy analyst at WICHE, Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. We're located in Boulder, Colorado. So kind of, if you look at that map on the screen, more towards the center, right smack in the middle. And some of the things that WICHE focuses on is supporting states with finance and affordability policies and legislation, and including access and success, workforce and society, technology and innovation and accountability. Those are kind of the broad buckets that WICHE supports states. So anything that they might need in support and additional research, and connecting to other states that might be going through similar policy hurdles. We try to connect states to each other to support each other. I think Wanda really mentioned it succinctly, that states can accomplish a lot more when they work together than if they try to tackle things individually. So that's what we're there to do. And OER really does complement all the areas that WICHE focuses on. And WICHE is launching this work. So I know some of our colleagues at MEC and NEBI are a lot further along in OER than the WICHE region, but we're launching our work, and we're really focusing on 4 major areas. So Tanya, if you want to go on to the next slide. And we are focusing on these 4 major areas with the understanding that some states are way ahead of the game compared to other states that maybe are just starting their OER efforts. And so the goal of WICHE over the next 18 months is to really support states at where they are currently. So whether it's a state that already has policies and legislation in place to scale and adopt and expand OER, to those states that are just kind of getting together and really thinking about how OER can support their students in their state. So we're there to support states at where they are. So the first goal of kind of the work that we're going to be doing over the next 18 months is to develop regional networks of states and territories. So it's we have 14 states, including the territories of Guam and the Mariana Islands. And so we hope that we can bring folks from all of those member states together to share best practices and collaborate on things that are important to them in the OER space. And so this includes developing webinars, virtual convenings, and hopefully face-to-face convenings as well towards the latter half of 2021, 2022. Unfortunately, COVID is our new reality. And so we still want to plan for that because the face-to-face interaction is very important in exchange of knowledge. And so we hopefully can pursue that in the latter half of this 18 months of the work that we're going to be embarking on. Distribution of newsletters among all of our member states to really inform of what's happening in Colorado versus what's happening in California, what's happening in Washington, Oregon, what's happening in Guam, because there's a lot of cross-pollination that can happen that we can really further this work. So we're not reinventing the wheel as some of my colleagues have shared. The second goal is to conduct needs analysis of policy and practice gaps. Like I mentioned, some states are way ahead and other states are just starting this work. And we really want to aggregate those state policies and statutes on OER for each state and territory within the WICHE region. And luckily, some folks have already started that work. I know Spark has kind of a big database of legislation for each state in the US and some other territories. And so starting from there, but it's an ever growing and evolving landscape. And so what's coming down the pipeline, what hasn't been enacted yet through policy and legislation, but what are states thinking and how can we support where they want to go? So really that goal here is to bring to the forefront what these gaps are and how could those be addressed regionally instead of recreating that wheel among WICHE member states and territories. And that third goal of the work that we're going to be embarking on is engaging in research on the impacts of OER. And so there's a lot of research out there already, but we are really focusing on the equity piece of OER. So really looking at how OER can impact the closing of equity gaps among different populations, whether those are racial and ethnic populations, low income, high income populations, adult learners, non-traditional students. We're also looking at post-secondary attainment and how OER can support that attainment among students of the West, including skills gaps, because we do understand that not all students are traditional students coming in from high school, that we do have adult students that really are going back for retraining, especially with our new economic reality. So how can we help support states in implementing OER policies that support students that are going back for retraining or expanding skill sets to enter the workforce or an ever-changing workforce environment. And we are really paying specific attention to how OER is assessed and adopted and created by under-resourced institutions and minority-serving institutions. The West is vastly diverse. And so we want to make sure that we can really support institutions, not just states where they are at, but also systems and institutions and within their own, I don't want to say category, but within where they are to be able to support OER within their institutions. And then we're hoping that this would lead to an equity assessment tool that we're hoping that we can develop in conjunction and in collaboration with states and territories and the system, institutional systems within these states to really help policymakers or those OER leaders and champions that are engaging in this work to really kind of use a framework that could really bring equity to the forefront when they're enacting support for OER in their states. And then finally, we want to broaden recognition that equity is essential to OER. So like I mentioned, student populations are very diverse, specifically in the West. I know in other regions as well, but in the West, we have Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities. We have Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions, Native American serving institutions, and MSIs. I mean, the list can go on. But in addition to that, the West is very rural. So the divisions between urban and rural and frontier communities are very vast in the West. And so we have communities with no internet reliability. I've worked in communities where they're still using dial-up. I've worked in communities that don't have internet access. So how can we support OER when we understand that there's a variety of access out there, especially in the West? And really, it's the goal is to embed equity in the practices that lead to scaling and adoption of OER among the states that we support and the territories that we support, understanding that it's important to have state leaders recognizing that OER can really support students and their success if we bring equity to the forefront. And like I said, equity is defined in very different ways among very diverse types of institutions and very diverse regions in our country. Like I said, it's not just race and ethnicity and socioeconomic status, but also that urban, rural, frontier categorization, as well as just the different needs and landscapes of each of our states. So we really want to welcome you to join us in the work that we're engaging in. So if you're in any of our Western states and territories, if you're in an institution, if you're faculty, if you're a student yourself, and even if you're not in our region but are really passionate about equity, tackling equity and open educational resources and materials, please reach out to us. Because we would really love to incorporate you as we launch this work starting now. So I give it back to Tanya for any questions.
Thanks, Lily. So we have a few questions in the chat, and if anyone else has additional questions, please put them in the chat. And I love also that if I don't know the answer, our panelists don't, and anyone who is part of the conversation can also help answer them. So I'd like to start with one that came from Stephen Bell, and he asked, does anyone in the NCOER know why Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey are not in one of these regional compacts? And that's a great question for Wanda. So could you take that, Wanda, and tell us a little bit more about state membership in the regional compacts and how we include states that aren't necessarily members?
That is a great question, and I'm not sure that I have the answer. I know that in the SREB region, it was the governors of those 16 original states that signed, basically an agreement to say that they would collaborate across state lines. And compacts actually, there are different types of compacts, but some of them have to be approved through Congress. And so it's kind of a different structure, I guess, but I am not really sure why Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey never joined a compact. Rachel may have an idea. I'm not really sure, Rachel, because two of those we would think would be in your area, right?
I think it's really determined by state priorities. And I think a piece of this is, it goes back to history. These compact organizations were founded, I think as far back in the 50s.
Yeah, ours was 1948. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it really has to do with state priorities. And I think as far as our national work here, our collaborative work, there's no intent on excluding any state. We want to build out a network that's comprehensive. We want to ensure that we're providing the same support, resources, sharing of ideas and suggested practices, whether or not the state is part of a compact, so to speak. So I'll just offer that clarification. In the New England region in particular, we've engaged both New York and New Jersey in our advisory committee around open education, and in as much as of our broader organizational work as we can. So.
Thank you, Rachel and Wanda. We also have
Sure.
a question from Stephen, and it's about Library Consortium. And he asked, tell me a little bit about some library consortia that has blossomed into statewide initiatives. And I actually asked Lindsay Kump privately in the chat because she's a librarian and is highly involved with library consortia. And so she suggested New Jersey. Lindsay, do you want to unmute and talk a little bit about what you know from what you provided? And others could also provide things in the chat if you know of library consortia that have turned into statewide initiatives.
Sure, Tanya. I don't know much about New Jersey's initiatives, but I do know that the Vail Library Consortium has Open New Jersey, and it's opennj.net. So they do have a listing of their member institutions. So it looks like a pretty robust statewide initiative that has come out of this library consortium. That's as much as I know.
Thanks, Lindsay. And I would just say that in every one of the state initiatives that librarians and their consortiums have been active and vital members of all of the groups. And so even if the work didn't necessarily start at the library level, they're active and important parts of every statewide and system-wide OER initiative. I have, are there other?
Sorry, I was going to add, I think in some cases we've seen these consortia have been a valuable sort of contributor to scaling efforts within a state. And in some places we've seen, you have legislative action sort of opening the door to open ed or OER development, but maybe lacking the resources to help practitioners figure out how to build OER. And I think that's really been the value of these consortia, sort of partnering with states or state governments in that work.
That's great. Are there any other questions that you have for the group?
This is Jenny. I was just putting some things in the chat, but in our 12 states, a number of the state initiatives, if you will, go hand in hand with the work of library consortia. So I'm listing some of them out for people if they would like to take a deeper look at them.
So we're thinking a lot next about how all of this work is going to be different in the COVID environment. We know that states have a lot of issues to grapple with, and that currently with the big push toward online and distance education and this new wave of courses all being in a virtual environment, that we have a huge opportunity to really introduce open educational resources to faculty in a new way, and to all the states that are looking to adopt more digital courseware. There's I worked with Jeff Seaman on that Bayview study about OER initiatives, and he's currently working on new research to find out if faculty awareness is increasing around digital courseware, and he said it is. They're more receptive to open resources, and they're also more receptive to educational resources in a digital format. So in the current COVID environment, when we can't all get together, we have opportunities and challenges where faculty are adopting digital resources at a higher rate, but also we can't necessarily have in-person meetings. So we are grappling with some of those issues at the regions and in states and at the regional compacts. But we're interested in how we can really, like Rachel said, not waste this crisis and make sure that we move open forward, because it makes so much sense for students right now and states to adopt OER to reduce cost, provide access, make education more equitable for students everywhere. So it looks like we have, oh, people are asking for links to the slides. Those are some of the questions. We have about 5 minutes left. And if you look in the chat, you can see that Regina Gong has set up a state library. She has a state library representative on their steering committee, and she provided the link to the Michigan OER. Jeff Gallant is also talking about active participation from consortium in the compact from Georgia. And also Jenny Parks put in the link to the chat, some statewide initiatives that are happening in the MEC region, Midwestern Higher Education region. I don't see any more questions. If anybody has them, they could just unmute right now, or we could wrap up.
If you want to go back to your slide that has all your contact information, Tanya, I would say that's a great idea. For those who can't grab screenshots, I'd also, if you, as the presenters, feel comfortable, encourage you to put your email addresses in the chat if you want people to contact you, for those who can't grab screenshots. But thank you so much for this presentation today. If there's any other questions, please drop them in the chat or turn your mic on. This has been very mind-opening, I guess I would say.
Yeah, you can always find us on Twitter. We're all on Twitter, and so are the regional compacts are on Twitter as well.
I'll bite. What's Twitter?
All
right, thank you everyone for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And if you have any questions, I'll be here for a couple more minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.